students, Saira. This is Megha Miss here, and we'll continue with the lesson, that is heat. Just we'll have a recap because it is long time back you have studied the before presentations regarding this lesson. So we'll just have a recap till now what you have studied. Okay, so the last presentation you studied about the anomalous behavior of water using Hope's apparatus. Yes, we have studied the whole Hope's apparatus. Using that, the important statement that the maximum density of the water is at 4 degrees Celsius, right? This you have studied. We have seen how it is proved also, the statement using the graph. Okay, students. Then we studied about the humidity. Yes, the concept about regarding the water vapor, water content present in our air, it relates with the humidity, right? Then we saw about the dew point temperature. We have seen the pictures also where you can see the dew when they are formed, when the condensation takes place, when the water vapor is more in the air. That time, because of the condensation, dew is formed, and it you can see it in the early morning on the grasses and all. You have seen the pictures also. Okay, now we'll continue with the lesson. The next topic which we are going to study, that is the absolute humidity. Now what is this absolute humidity? The vapor content in the air is measured using a physical quantity called absolute humidity. Okay, so whatever the vapor content, how much vapor is present in the air, it is measured using this absolute humidity. Okay, the mass of a vapor present in a unit volume of air is called absolute humidity. So the definition for the absolute humidity is the mass of the vapor that is present in unit volume of air is called my absolute humidity. Now what is it is measured, what is the unit? It is measured in kg per meter cube. Okay, students, or gram, kg or grams. Okay, the feeling of humid or dry nature of air depends upon the temperature of air also. So if the how the air is, whether it is humid, whether it is dry, this nature of the air, it depends upon the temperature of the air also. Okay, as it depends upon the content of vapors in the air, it will also depend upon the temperature. Okay, students, so I hope what is absolute humidity you have understood. Okay, now the ratio of actual mass of vapor content in the air for a given volume and temperature to that required to make the air saturated with vapor at that temperature is called the relative humidity. So the ratio of actual mass of the vapor content in the air, so how much vapor is present in the air, its actual mass, okay, for a given volume and temperature, means a particular volume is given and the temperature, fixed temperature is given, and in that volume and fixed volume and temperature we are going to take that mass of the water content. Okay, vapor content, sorry, not water, vapor content. Okay, to that means we are going to have the ratio of this to what, to the required amount of air saturated with vapor at that same temperature is called the relative humidity. What you will call it, students? We will call it as relative humidity. Simple, easily to be understood is the formula. Okay, it is mentioned there, percent relative humidity. As it is percent, you can see we have multiplied it by 100. Okay, so actual mass of water vapor content in the air in given volume at a particular temperature, okay, upon mass of the vapor needed to make the air saturated in that volume. You know what is to make air saturated? We have studied saturated air and unsaturated air. Okay, so how much vapor will be needed to make the air saturated in that particular volume? So this ratio multiplied by 100 gives you percent relative humidity. Okay, again I'll repeat, percent relative humidity is equal to actual mass of water vapor content in the air in given volume. Okay, in any particular volume if I am taking, divided by mass of vapor needed to make the air saturated in that volume multiplied by 100. So this formula will give you percent relative humidity. Okay students, now the relative humidity at the dew point is 100%. So in morning when the dew is formed on the grass, you will say that relative humidity is 100%. Okay. If the relative humidity is more than 60%, we feel that air is humid. Okay. So if this percent value of relative humidity is more than 60%, then air is humid. If the relative humidity is less than 60%, we feel that air is dry. Okay student, so I hope you understood this connection with, if it is more than 60, it is humid, and if it is less than 60, then the air is dry. Okay students, now during winter season, you may have observed a white trail at the back of a flying plane in a clear sky. Right? You must have seen this. The plane is flying, and from the back side you may see the white trail. Okay. As the plane flies, the vapor released by the aeroplane engine condenses and forms the cloud. So what happens here? The vapor, as the plane flies, the vapor released by the aeroplane, whatever the aeroplane is releasing the vapors, what is happening? They are getting condensed and they form the clouds. Okay, and that only white trail you can see. If the surrounding air is having more relative humidity, it takes a long time for the white trail formed by condensation of the vapor. Now if the relative humidity is more, as I told you, it must be, if it is more than 60%, okay, then what will happen? More time will be required for that formation of the trail, okay, and to disappear. If relative humidity of the surrounding air is less, either the size of the white trail may be small or it may not even get formed. Means relative humidity is less means what? If it is less than 60%, that means dry air. Okay, then what will happen? It will take the trail, what will be formed will be very small, or might it not be formed also. Okay student, so this is a question for a give reason. The white trail, what you see, how it is formed. Okay, so or you may get a question like the white trail, when the relative humidity is less, the white trail does not appear, or it is smaller in size. Explain why. Okay, so this is a type of a give reason, so remember this. Okay, when air cools due to decrease in temperature, it becomes saturated with water vapor. So when the air cools due to decrease in temperature, when temperature is less in the atmosphere, air is getting cooled, that means more water vapor is there. Okay, as a result, the excess water vapor gets converted into tiny droplets. This we have studied in last presentation also. The dew point temperature is decided by the amount of vapor in the air. So how much air is there? How much air is there in that air, how much water droplets are there, how much vapor is there, depending upon that the dew will be formed, the water droplets will be formed, that many. Okay, if air is more saturated, more dew point temperature will be higher. Okay, and more you can see the water droplets. If it is a dry air, if the air is unsaturated, then you will not find more moisture in the air. Okay student, so I hope till here is clear to you. Okay, how the white trail is forming, I hope that concept also you understood. Okay, all this answer of the white trail is given in your text. You can open the text and you can read it again. Okay, now next topic we are starting with, that is the specific heat capacity. Now what is the specific heat capacity? We will just have a look to our experiment and we will see what is happening here. Now we will see the procedure. Take 3 spheres of iron, copper and lead of equal mass. Now of equal mass we are taking the 3 spheres. Okay, yes, it should be equal mass, is very important. Put all the 3 spheres in boiling water in a beaker for some time. I am taking 3 different beakers. In 3 different beakers, if I am taking boiling water, same temperature boiling water, same whatever I have boiled one time, I will divide that water in 3 parts. I will put the ball same size balls in the 3 beakers, okay, and keep it for some time. Take the 3 spheres out of the water. All the spheres will be at a temperature 100 degrees Celsius. Yes, because I have put it in the boiling water. My boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius, so all the spheres will be at 100 degrees Celsius. Put them immediately on the thick slab of wax. I have taken a thick slab of wax and I am going to put that balls into that, okay. Note the depth that each of the sphere goes into the wax. Now I have to see how much depth each sphere is going, okay, how much it is going inside. Depth means what? How much inside that 3 balls are going, okay. We'll see the observations. Can you guess what will be the observation? Will it be different observations, or you will see all 3 balls are going same speed down inside the wax? Think, huh? Okay, so we'll see what happens. See, this is the diagram. It is given in your textbook also. From the diagram only, I think you can make a guess that all the 3 spheres, they are going at a different depths. Can you see iron sphere, copper sphere and lead sphere, right? Iron sphere has went more. Copper is at an intermediate stage, while lead has went the least, okay. So this is experiment which is used to study the specific heat of the metals, okay. These 3 are metals, you know that, okay. Now see, the sphere which absorbs more heat from water will give more heat to the wax. More wax will thus melt and the sphere will go more deeper in the wax. So the sphere which has got more power to absorb the heat will absorb the more amount of heat and give it to the wax. So here you have seen that iron has got more power to absorb the heat from the water and it gave it to the wax, okay. Lead sphere goes the least and copper sphere goes to intermediate depth, while iron goes most inside. So iron will go more inside, then will copper and then the lead, okay. This means the 3 spheres have different capacity to absorb heat, which is called as specific heat capacity. Yes students, so all these spheres have got different capacities to absorb that heat and hence we will say that they have got different specific heat capacity. Okay students, I hope till here is clear to you. You understood the experiment also, okay. Now, what is the specific heat capacity? We will see the definition, okay. The amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a unit mass of an object by 1 degree Celsius is called specific heat of that object. Again, I will repeat, the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of an unit mass of an object by 1 degree Celsius is called specific heat of that object. Okay students, it is denoted by letter C. It should be small letter C, not capital letter. SI unit of specific heat is joule per degree Celsius, kg, and the CGS unit is calories per gram degree Celsius. Okay students, so very important, you are going to make a note of this definition also, symbol also and the units also, okay. So these are the 2 units, very important, that is joule per degree Celsius kg and calories per gram degree Celsius. Both you are going to use it in the sums, okay. So I hope what is specific heat capacity you have understood. In simple words, this is the capacity of the object to absorb the heat and all of the objects have got different heat capacity. Okay students, now if the specific heat of an object is C, the mass of an object is M, and if the temperature of the object is raised by delta T degree Celsius, the heat absorbed by the object is given by M multiplied by C multiplied by delta T. Delta T means difference in temperature, higher temperature minus lower temperature. Okay student, so if I am having a specific heat of an object is C, mass of the object is M and the temperature raised, means the difference. Initial temperature will be something different and then it is raised. So that difference is delta T degree Celsius. Then we can calculate the heat absorbed by the object as by the formula m into C into delta T. Okay. Similarly, if the same way, if specific heat of an object is C, mass of an object is m, and if the temperature of the object is decreased by delta T degree Celsius, means the higher temperature towards lower, that difference is delta T degree Celsius, then the heat energy lost by the object, again same formula, m into C into delta T. So energy, whatever heat is absorbed by the object or energy lost by the object, both you have the same formula, m into C into delta T. Okay students, so I hope till here is clear to you. Okay, now next topic we are going to study, that is about the heat exchange. Okay, now what is this heat exchange? Now if heat is exchanged between a hot and a cold object, now you always know heat transfer will be taken from the hotter to the colder object. Until what time this transfer will take? Till both the objects attain same temperature. You have studied this. Okay, the temperature of the cold object goes on increasing due to gain of energy, and the temperature of the hot objects goes on decreasing due to loss of energy. Yes, if the cold object is taking the heat, its temperature will increase, and if hot object is giving the heat, its temperature will decrease. The change in temperature continues till the temperature of both the objects attain the same value. In the process, cold object gains heat energy and hot object loses the heat energy. If the system of both the object is isolated from the environment by keeping it inside a heat resistant box, meaning that the energy exchange takes place between the two objects only, then no energy can flow from inside the box or come into. Means what student? I have taken both the systems, both the box I have taken, cold object and hot object, and I am keeping it into a heat resistant box. Now what is a heat resistant box? Where the heat cannot pass outside or heat cannot come inside. That is called as a heat resistant box. In such box, if I am keeping that two objects, then the heat will be not allowed to go outside or heat will not come inside that box, and only the exchange will take place between the two object, that is one hot object and the cold object. Understood students? I am taking two objects, one hot, one cold. I am keeping those objects in a heat resistance box. Why I am keeping it inside that? Because I don't want any outside temperature, outside air to go inside and increase the temperature, or any of the inside hotness or coldness to go outside. Okay students? Now this is a heat resistance box. Can you see? Hot object and cold object is kept inside that. So heat energy lost by hot object is equal to the heat energy gained by cold object. This is called the principle of heat exchange. What we call it as the principle of heat exchange, means the heat which is lost by the hot object is equal to the heat gained by the cold object. Okay, simple to understand. Hot object give the energy, cold object take that energy. Okay, and till what time this will continue? Till both of them do not become of equal temperature. Okay students, now measurement of specific heat, mixing method and calorimeter. Now you have seen this calorimeter. I think in the previous standards you have seen it. Is like a heat resistant box only. Okay, specific heat of an object can be measured through mixing method. So we can use this mixing method to measure the specific heat. If a hot solid object is put in water in a calorimeter, the heat exchange between the hot object and the water and the calorimeter starts. What I have done, I have taken a hot object, I have put it in the water, and that I have kept it in the calorimeter. Now heat exchange will take place between what? Hot object, water and the calorimeter. Okay, this continues till the temperature of solid object, water and the calorimeter becomes equal. Okay, all the three should become equal temperature, then only my heat exchange will stop. Okay, now heat lost by the solid object is equal to heat gained by the water in the calorimeter plus heat gained by the calorimeter. So whatever the solid object will lose the energy, it will be gained by the water and calorimeter. Here heat lost by the object Q is equal to mass of the solid object multiply by its specific heat multiply by decrease in its temperature. Okay, that is Q is equal to M into C into delta T. What we have seen previous, the formula. Okay students. Similarly, heat gained by the water Q1 is equal to mass of the water multiply by its specific heat multiply by increase in temperature. Why first it is written heat lost by object is decrease in temperature? Because it is going to give the heat, so decrease will be taking in the temperature, while the water, what it is going to do, it is going to take that heat, so its temperature will increase, so it will be increase in the temperature. Okay students, now heat gained by the calorimeter Q2 is mass of the calorimeter multiply by its specific heat multiply by increase in its temperature. Of course, calorimeter will also take the heat from that water, from that hot object, sorry. So it will, I'll write its value as Q2. Heat lost by the hot object is equal to heat gained by the calorimeter plus heat gained by the water. So Q is equal to Q2 plus Q1. Okay. Using this, if the specific heat of water and calorimeter is known, then of the solid object can be found. So we can find of the solid object what is the specific heat if you know the values of the specific heat of water and calorimeter. Okay, so same formula, Q is equal to M into C into delta T. Mass of the water, mass of the hot object, mass of the calorimeter, multiply by their specific heat, multiply by, first will be lost by the object, heat is lost by object, so we will say decrease in temperature. Water is gaining the heat, so it will be increase in temperature. Calorimeter is also taking the heat, so it will be multiply by increase in the temperature. You get the value for Q, Q1 and Q2. So you can get, if any of the terms you know, even you know Q and Q1, you can get Q2. If you know Q1, Q2, you can get the value for Q. Okay students, so I hope till here you have understood everything. Okay, so we have come to the end. So today we studied about absolute humidity, its definition. Then we studied about specific heat capacity. What every object have got a different specific heat capacity. In the textbook, table is given where specific heat capacity of different objects are given. You are going to study that. Okay. And the heat exchange, we have seen principle of heat exchange. That is, whatever the heat energy will be lost by the hot objects will be equal to the heat energy gained by the cold object. This we called it as the principle of heat exchange. Okay students, so I hope today what I have taught you, you have understood and you are going to revise it again. Here we complete with the lesson. Sums are there which I am going to take in the next presentation. Okay students, so take care. Sai Ram.